U.S. government agencies are taking concerted steps to implement a zero trust architecture to protect critical systems and data. Those efforts include meeting a number of cybersecurity standards and objectives by the end of fiscal year 2024. I'm Wyatt Cash at Scoop News Group, and here to talk about that effort is Mitch Herckis, Director, Federal Cybersecurity in the Office of the CIO within the Executive Office of the President. Mitch, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me today.
So I'd like to set the stage a little bit. What challenges are you hearing most often from agency IT leaders about implementing the zero trust guidelines that the Office of Management and Budget has issued?
So, taking a step back, I think it's important to know, and I'm sure your listeners are aware, that taking the federal government in this significant shift towards the zero trust paradigm, it's not a singular project. It's not one thing. It's a really fundamental change in approaches to how we're approaching federal agencies, their data, and their security of both. Our goal is to really raise the baseline over the next few years. And everybody's starting in a different place with different parts of that journey, right? So it's hard to say really, this is the one challenge, but if we're going to kind of take it from a strategic standpoint, I would say, the decades of technical debt that have been ignored for far too long is the top of the list. And that manifests itself in various ways where agencies are unable to implement certain security measures as a result of that. So, I think it's why it's so important for us to think of this as such a cohesive strategy in line with their broader IT development strategy and how they are thinking about not just their cybersecurity pot as a whole and how they strategically invest that, but also how they're investing in their overall IT modernization. And, there's a lot of ways we're trying to help them overcome those challenges. And I'm sure we'll talk about a few of those today. But, some of that has to be, putting investments into those IT modernization efforts. And we're also trying to help agencies through that sort of effort through things like the Technology Modernization Fund, which is able to provide real money that agencies may not have been able to access over multi-years in the past to enact infrastructure changes. Those may not have been able to happen otherwise without that kind of investment. So that's been a real win. We expect real big things of the agencies over the next 2 years. It's an aggressive timeline. So as I'm sure you can imagine, that's going to it's going to take time. It's going to be one of those things that agencies are going to have questions about, but we are engaging with them, ensuring that we are moving in the right direction.
Well, and certainly you're right. Agencies are starting it from a lot of different starting points. But as you continue to interact with them and look ahead to the fiscal 24 kind of objectives, what additional measures do you envision OMB taking to help address those challenges?
Yeah, so that help has already been on the way, and like from day one of putting out M2209, the zero trust strategy, we really started talking to agencies of the expectations. But then, as we received their zero trust implementation plans, we kind of immediately started engaging in deep dives with them. We put together a cross-functional team of subject matter experts, included folks from our office and the Office of Management and Budget, folks from CISA, folks from the Office of the National Cyber Director, and we did deep dives with every agency. And those conversations are continuing, frankly, to this day. Every agency has had kind of their team and ours sit down, at least go through their plan once. If there were questions we had, we tried to ensure there was clarity. If there were opportunities to make the plan even better, we worked together on that. And then from there, we're trying to set up the long-term support for actually doing these implementations, right? Not just setting them up on the right path, but also providing that issue expertise. That involves qualitative conversations with communities of practice, with their peers, where there's opportunities for us to get together and have conversations around who is taking what approaches and looking towards those leading practices. And out of that, we see some pilots coming out that may, really lead the government in trying to do things like phishing resistant MFA across the enterprise in ways that are more rapid and seamless for the user. So we're really excited about the energy we've seen from agencies, and continue to work with them on solutioning where we see problems.
Absolutely, and that sounds encouraging. One of the other discussions that we hear often is the challenge of balancing existing security requirements with these sort of new directions. So, as agencies try to balance those concerns, how do you see the federal zero trust adoption kind of aligning with traditional FISMA and other security requirements that have kind of more traditionally been a check the box approach, since this is so much more of a holistic way of thinking about security?
Yeah, so what we want to do at all costs is avoid check the box approaches. We are very much focused on outcomes and actions that are going to reduce the risks to the federal enterprise, and that's why we've started already prior to this shifting our metrics in FISMA last year to focus on outcomes, and we're going to continue to push into the future on reducing those kind of burdensome check the box exercises for agencies so they can really focus their personnel on the real security measures that need to get done. Now, there's a lot of ways we can do that. We can do that through automation. We can do that through, ensuring that the questions we ask are things that are actionable and not repetitive in any way or duplicative of information that can be attained elsewhere by us. There's a number of ways we can do that, but in the end, what's most important is that we ask the right questions that are aligned with the outcomes we want to see. And those, in many cases, are around zero trust. So, we've been doing the things like ensuring that the questions we ask are aligned to the zero trust M22 effort. And we started that last year. And now that M2209 is out, we can continue that process. But I think over time, we will just continue to ensure that the more we can turn these questions into things that are just either simple because they are already fulfilled because agencies are providing that information through machine readable formats, or alternatively, we minimize the other ones to just the needs that we need to ensure we have appropriate visibility into their actions.
Then lastly, how would you say OMB is attempting to help agencies, number one, identify implementation gaps, and two, ensure that they're able to lay the right foundational tools for things like visibility and analytics and orchestration and automation across zero trust so that they can indeed get a big picture view of their security posture?
So, there are multiple ways, and it starts with the one-on-one conversations our teams are having with CIOs and CISOs, and frankly, the guidance and community built through the CIO and CISO councils as well, frankly. I think it also comes with our facts. As I mentioned, we're shifting FISMA to focus on outcomes, right? And the data which we get from there leads to conversations that allows us to build context and also qualitative data, frankly, and understanding of what gaps might exist. We are partnering with CISA so we can understand and compare notes on what they're seeing on deployment of critical tool sets, such as those in the CDM program, the continuous diagnostics, and I always say this wrong, continuous diagnostics and mitigation program. But, we also are working with our colleagues at the Office of the National Cyber Director. The federal CISO, Chris DeRusha, is dual-hatted there as the Deputy National Cyber Director for Federal Cybersecurity. So working across all these groups, we're able to kind of engage with agencies in a holistic manner and talk to them about what they are seeing and ensure that we are really understanding as an entirety how they are approaching these, and ensuring also that CISA is getting the visibility they need to really work with agencies and understand at an operational level what's going on. There's no silver bullet here, obviously, for figuring out, getting that enterprise-wide visibility. You have to think of each of these agencies as major organizations in their own right, with their own complexities and their own unique missions, very often, typically multiple missions. But, this hard work, this continuous work of conversation and dialogue and getting understanding, and then building the right tools underneath that, whether it be with CISA or within the agencies themselves, really does give that kind of visibility and coordination necessary.
Well, clearly it's the right strategy, and we're certainly seeing more and more momentum building in the right direction. And I know, speaking to agencies, the work that NIST has done and CISA has done, and the additional guidance that's come from your offices is all helping to get agencies focused in the right direction. So, well, Mitch Herckis, thank you so much for taking a few minutes to join us here for this series and share some of your insights on helping agencies continue to build towards a zero trust architecture.
Thanks, Wyatt. I appreciate the time.